Hello and welcome. I'm Sumesh Sharma. 2010 is the year of tiger, the year to talk about conservation. So we brought in guests who are keen about tiger conservation, and there's something more interesting that a tiger played in their lives. We have Mr. Nanda Rana and Mrs. Latika Rana with us. Welcome, Mr. and Mrs. Rana. So, Mr. Rana, could you tell us how tiger plays an important role in your personal life?
Well, personal life-wise, actually, it's given me a lot. One thing, it impressed me so much that I've been working on it for over a decade. Second thing is, we both, Latika and me, we actually met because of the tiger.
Exactly, that's where I was coming to.
All right. So, what happened was I was making a film for a British production company called Partridge Films, which of course later was bought by BBC and Discovery. It's being shown on that. And Latika was doing her DPhil from Oxford on tigers. And that's how we actually met. You could say we actually met for the first time on the back of elephants, looking at tigers. And that was our passion that got us together. You know, it did take some time. We didn't immediately see each other and this thing, but while working, we sort of liked each other, and then that's what...
Yeah. Mrs. Rana, well, let's see your views. You met a wildlife photographer.
Yes.
And was it instant? Or was it love with the tiger first and Mr. Rana later?
He wasn't so much a wildlife photographer at that time, as much as a friend of the family. And I'm definitely known for his superb wildlife photographs and the fact that he was working with all of these companies on film production. But I think what really got us together was the fact that we had this great passion for the tiger, and you know, every evening I'd be out the whole day doing my research, he'd be out doing his filming, we'd come back, we'd discuss what we saw, we'd discuss what we were going to do the next day, discuss what we'd learned about the tigers during that day. And over a period of time, we realized that it was very gradual. We just realized that we were happier together than apart.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how it sort of came.
How do you see, Mr. Rana, how do you see tiger's role in the whole love story, if I may put it that way?
Well, I guess if it wasn't for the tiger, she won't be doing her research there, and I won't be making my films.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, that actually played quite a great role.
We haven't heard of many stories actually triggered by a tiger.
Yes.
Well, it got us together. That's one thing for certain, that it got us together there.
And allowed us to work together and stay together even ordinarily, because if I worked on tigers and he worked on something else, I'd be in the jungles most of the time, he'd be in a city, or vice versa. But because we both have the passion for tigers, you know, we can live our lives together and work together.
It sounds interesting. But tell me, even in your daily lives, how much of tiger actually features in your personal conversations now?
Well, you know, it does feature practically something or the other practically every day. What is happening around the world, what, you know, comes in the news about tigers, which is not very good news nowadays. You know, like especially with India, we've been working in India for so long, and in 15 years, it's lost more than 50% of the tiger. So that's a very worrying, I won't say it's a very pleasant thing that to talk about, but it is a very, very worrying concept right now. It's how to save the tigers all over the world.
And of course, I mean, we do talk a lot about experiences with the tigers. We spend some time every day looking at the photographs Nanda's taken that day, because now with digital photography it's become so much easier. We discuss tiger behavior. If we're fortunate enough that, you know, we've had a tiger come somewhere near the camp or into the lodge grounds or something, then we talk about that. Client sightings. So I would say a lot of our time is spent. Even today.
In case some of our audiences are confused, Mr. and Mrs. Rana actually run a camp in India. It's in Kahana of Madhya
Kahana
Pradesh.
National Park, yeah. It's one of the largest tiger project parks in India.
So that's where you work. What exactly do you think you're doing with the tigers there?
Well, what we are doing is one of the main things we are trying to do. Of course, with the park, you know, the Indian government is very reluctant to have someone interfere with the park. So we find it quite difficult We do things like last year we built 5 water holes for the park itself. Got funds from friends and we built 5 water holes. This year Latika had a health camp for the villages surrounding the park, which nearly over 3,000 villagers were treated by doctors from AIMS and from Nagpur and places like that. Then we also work very closely with the village school and the people around, because awareness to the people, I think, is the most important thing. If the villagers surrounding the park protect the tiger, you don't need guards.
Mm-hmm.
And the villagers are not benefiting too much from the park. So the animals will come, eat up their crops. Cattle get killed by tigers. Compensation is not given in time. We do try to help them in that. And so because of these difficulties the villagers face, there is a slight resentment from the villagers
I'm sure
towards
that
the park.
the same thing also is true in case of Nepal.
Absolutely.
Where-
Anywhere where there's a conflict between wildlife and animals, there will be a resentment, and that is what we have to correct. That is where we have to get the fine balance between the animals and the villagers. If the villagers benefit from the park, they will automatically save the animals.
How can that be done? Mr. Rana, if you might help in that.
Normally, you have to ensure that a certain amount of the money or the wealth generated as a result of the existence of the park and its related tourism goes to the community that is living on the edge of the protected area. As long as people have a monetary stake in the existence of the park, they will ensure that it survives. And that's the crux of the matter.
But that's not been happening. Even in case of Nepal, when we look at it,
Nepal
the people near the tiger habitat or
Yeah.
wildlife
Yeah.
parks
Yeah.
are not benefiting as much as they would expect.
Yes, but Nepal has definitely set standards for the world to follow. This is the one area that Nepal is a forerunner, and people from every other tiger range country looks to Nepal for guidance and advice, because your community forestry projects and your people's participatory projects are amongst the finest in the world. Yes, we can do much better, but everybody can always do much better. But we have to give credit where credit's due. We've set milestones.
So you've also, Mr. Rana, you've also traveled to various parts of Nepal.
Yes.
And have you sighted tiger here itself?
Rarely. I have, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Like initially, even, I used to go to Machan. One of my friends set it up. There are very few animals there, but even there I've actually tracked on foot. That's the best way in Nepal, which you are allowed to walk in the parks, which you aren't allowed in India. You can actually track them on foot with the shikari, and I've seen them. I've photographed tigers in Nepal also. But it is much, much more difficult sighting tigers in Nepal than in India. There are reasons for it. One is the forest and the vegetation, of course, is much thicker in the Tarai than in Madhya Pradesh, or even better in Ranthambore. It's fantastic because it's all scrub. Another thing is, somehow in India we managed to get the tigers used to the elephants and the vehicles and the people by not disturbing them. If you see it, there's restrictions. And you go on the elephant, there are some tigers which have grown up with seeing tourists on elephants, that if it's lying down, you can go 10 feet away, it will just put up its head. But it's as wild as the tigers in India. It's not enclosed or it's not fed or it's nothing of, unnatural.
That brings another question in my head. Is that the right thing? Is that how we're looking at conservation, where the wild animals are getting used to the people from the cities who go to see them, watch them? It's more about fun for them. And again, and also seeing all those vehicles and whatever is possible there. Is it what we are looking at, or keep them in totally wild surrounding?
Well, just keeping them in wild surrounding would be a great idea. But what we have noticed is the maximum amount of tigers in the parks in India is in the tourist zone. There are only certain areas that are open to the tourist zone, you see, not the whole park. Now, if those animals were really feeling threatened or they weren't breeding in the tourist zone or something, you could say that's very bad. But these animals, they could have moved to the other zones, if they were disturbed so much. In some places, only 105 square kilometers out of 750 odd square kilometers is open to tourists. But the maximum amount of tigers are concentrated in that area. What is the reason? These are things we have to actually study and do a research on. And if it is tourism that is protecting the tigers, I think it should be allowed because the tourists actually monitor the park from 6 o'clock in the morning till it gets dark. They're actually monitoring the park. Anything goes wrong in the parks, the tourists have actually reported poaching cases. Tourists have actually reported tigers dragging traps.
One of the reasons
there's a
could be
big
that they are
controversy.
interested
You
in
have to
tiger.
actually look into it and do it, not just say cut out tourists from the park. Maybe it'll have a bad effect. Let's study it. You are studying so many things. 40 years Smithsonian's been studying tigers. This can just take 2 or 3 years of study, and Latika has actually done a study on the tourist area and the adjoining area.
That's where I was coming to,
and
Mrs.
that
Rana.
she will know better about.
Mrs. Rana, can we say that tigers are now more interested in tourists than the tourists in tigers?
No, I don't think so. I think
Because as he says, we see more tigers in the tourist areas rather than in total wild.
It's simply a matter of protection and due diligence, because I think wherever there are tourists and what in our parts of the world are called very important people, VIPs, then the authorities and the officials actually put in a greater effort into that area. So it's managed better, the focus is more on that region, prey densities are higher because there's less poaching, greenwood felling, illegal forest produce extraction is all controlled. So that the habitat really becomes more conducive for tigers.
There are some romantic conservationists, I would say,
Yes.
who think that all the efforts of conservation
Yes.
is basically pulled by money or money generation. How do you react to that, both of you?
Well, if it was that case, I would actually give you example again of India. There's so much money coming for tiger conservation. Where is it going? The parks have not improved. The animal numbers have not increased. Yes, in the middle, when the tiger project came in, it increased tremendously. That was due to political will, not due to money. Indira Gandhi really played a big role in actually bringing up the wildlife and protecting the wildlife and making sure work was done on wildlife.
But, I would like to say that this is, in India's case, it's different. In Nepal's case, it's different. And in Africa, which is by and large the biggest example for wildlife conservation, it is definitely economy oriented. Because wildlife is the single largest earner for most of the countries in Africa today. So it is very, very money driven. And private parks are doing very, very well there. In Nepal, as I said, it's a participatory approach. Definitely wildlife tourism is important in Nepal, and the revenue earned from that, with the spread of the revenue into the villages, has helped Nepal achieve a status which its neighbors haven't, where tiger conservation has. So I think yes, in today's economy, my reply would be yes, it is.
For some people, it's like anything that pays stays. So conservation is here to stay because it's paying for many.
It has to be done.
It has to.
Especially in the case of Africa, as you said.
Yeah.
What do you say about Nepal? Is it paying enough for people to be lured into
You'll
conservation?
be surprised that Nepal's parks are supported. I think